welcome to our channel LawLust. With this video, we will going to conclude the series of 500 MCQ for RRB SW exam because the exam is on 15th. So, best of luck those who are appearing for the exam. Without wasting any time, let's move on to the question. Question number 451. A worker employed through a contractor claims gratuity after completion of continuous service. The principal employer argues that the contractor alone is liable. The statement is legally most accurate. So here the accurate statement is according to the frameworks. Option number B. Liability depends upon the statutory framework governing gratuity and the factual employer-employee relationship. So move on to the next question. The doctrine of equal pay and equal work. The doctrine of equal pay for equal work has primarily evolved in India as a constitutional principle. Move on to the next question. Question number 453. An employee deliberately disobeys repeated safety instructions and sustains injuries. While determining the compensation, the authority should primarily examine. So here the correct answer is whether statutory disqualifications or exceptions affecting the liability are attracted or not. Move on to the next question. Question number 454. Which of the following is the best legal test for deciding whether an accident arose out of in the course of employment? So here the correct answer is existence of causal connection between employment and accident. Move on to the next question. Question number 455. Under the labor jurisprudence, the process of domestic inquiry is primarily to. So here the correct answer is domestic inquiry ensures compliance with principle of natural justice before imposing a major penalties. So move on to the next question. Question number 456. A recognized trade union signs a settlement with management during conciliation proceedings. Such settlements ordinarily binds parties in accordance with the statutory provision governing settlement. Move on to the next question. Question number 457. Which constitutional principle provides the strongest justification for labor welfare legislation in India? So here the correct answer is social justice under the DPSP together with equality provisions. Move on to the next question. Question number 458. A public information officer rejects an RTI application without assigning reasons. Such rejection is. So here the correct answer is legally unsustainable because reasons are required under the statutory scheme, that is RTI Act 2005. Move on to the next question. Question number 459. The primary object behind constituting a grievance redressal committee under the labor legislation is the early resolution of individual employment grievances within the establishment. Move on to the next question. Question number 460. An employer introduces a AI-based employee monitoring without framing any transparent policy. From the perspective of labor welfare and natural justice, the greatest legal concern is. So here the correct answer is absence of procedural fairness, transparency and privacy safeguards. So move on to the next question. Question number 461. Read the following statement regarding the Code on Wages 2019. So the statement number 1. The code empowers the appropriate government to fix minimum wages for scheduled employments only. Statement number 2. The code extends the concept of minimum wages beyond the earlier scheduled employment approach. So here the correct answer is both statement 1 and 2 are correct. Move on to the next question. Question number 462. A worker employed through a contractor has been continuously supervised and controlled by the principal employer for determining employer-employee relationship. The most important legal test is. So here the correct answer is test of control and supervision read with the facts of employment. Move on to the next question. Question number 463. Which one of the following cannot ordinarily be delegated by an employer under labor welfare legislation? So here the correct answer is statutory responsibilities to provide a safe workplace. Move on to the next question. Question number 464. Under the RTI Act, the expression information includes. So here the correct answer is the information includes future policy decisions yet to be taken. Move on to the next question. Question number 465. Which of the following principle forms the foundation of disciplinary proceeding under the labor jurisprudence? So here the correct answer is principle of natural justice. So here the question of assertion and reason. Move on to the next question. Question number 466. So collective bargaining is intended to reduce industrial conflict. Reason: collective bargaining provides a structure mechanism for negotiation between employers and employees. So here the correct answer is both A and R true and R correctly explain the reason, correctly explain the assertion. So move on to the next question. Question number 467. Which of the following is not a valid objection for labor welfare legislation? So here the invalid objective is maximization of employer profits irrespective of worker welfare. Move on to the next question. Question number 468. An employee receives a charge sheet without relevant documents and is denied an opportunity to cross-examine witness. Which principle is violated? So here the correct answer is odi alteram partem. So move on to the next question. Question number 469. The principle that beneficial labor legislation should ordinarily receive liberal interpretation is primarily intended to. So here the correct answer is option number A, that is protect the object and purpose of welfare legislation. So move on to the next question. Question number 470. Which constitutional article specifically prohibits trafficking in human being and forced labor? So here the correct answer is Article 23. Move on to the next question. A welfare officer receives complaints from both management and employees regarding the same incident. His first legal and ethical duty is to. So here the correct answer is conduct an impartial finding proceeding. Move on to the next question. Question number 472. Which of the following best distinguishes conciliation from arbitration? So here the correct answer is option number C, that is conciliation facilitates settlement, whereas the arbitration culminates in an award by the arbitrator. Move on to the next question. Question number 473. In labor jurisprudence, victimization is generally refers to. So here the correct answer is option number B, that is unfair treatment of an employee for exercising legitimate legal or union rights. Move on to the next question. Question number 474. Which one of the following best reflects the modern role of a staff welfare officer? So here the correct answer is balancing legal compliances, employee welfare, organizational objectives, and industrial peace. So move on to the next question. Question number 475. A labor welfare statute is capable of two reasonable interpretations. According to settled principle governing beneficial legislation, preference should ordinarily be given to the interpretation that it furthers the legislative object of protecting employees, consistent with the statutory language. So move on to the next question. Question number 476. Under the labor jurisprudence, the control test used for determining employer-employee relationship has in modern decision largely been supplemented by. So here the correct answer is interrogation and composite employment test. Move on to the next question. Question number 477. Under the Industrial Relation Code 2020, a strike commenced without complying with the statutory notice requirements in a public utility service is generally regarded as. So here the correct answer is it is an illegal strike. Move on to the next question. Question number 478. Which of the following is not ordinarily an ingredient of a valid domestic inquiry? So here the correct answer is immediate punishment before inquiry. So this is not a valid object of domestic inquiry. Move on to the next question. Question number 479. The principle that labor welfare legislation should receive a purposive interpretation primarily means that the interpretation advancing the object of social welfare legislation. So move on to the next question. Question number 480. A welfare officer receives two conflicting medical reports regarding an employee's occupational disease. So before recommending any action, the welfare officer should. So here the correct answer is seek an impartial evaluation in accordance with the applicable procedure. Move on to the next question. Question number 481. Under the RTI Act, information held by a private body can be accessed by a citizen only when it is accessible by a public authority under any other law. So move on to the next question. Question number 482. Which doctrine is most closely applied when determining whether employment related travel falls within the course of employment? So here the correct answer is doctrine of notional extension. Move on to the next question. Question number 483. Which of the following best explain the rationale behind constituting a negotiating council under the Industrial Relation Code? So here the correct answer is to facilitate collective bargaining where no single union satisfies the statutory requirement for recognition. So move on to the next question. So assertion is that beneficial labor legislation is ordinarily interpreted liberally. The reason, the objective is to advance the legislative intent of protecting workers without ignoring the statutory language. So here the correct answer is option number A. Both A and R are true and R correctly explain the assertion. Move on to the next question. Question number 485. Which constitutional provision most directly supports equal opportunity in public employment? So here the correct answer is article number 16. Move on to the next question. Question number 486. Which of the following best distinguishes layoff from retrenchment? So here the correct answer is option number B. Layoff is ordinarily a temporary inability. So whereas the retrenchment ordinarily result in termination of for reason permitted by law. So move on to the next question. Question number 487. A welfare officer notices that contractor is maintaining statutory register incorrectly. His most appropriate professional response is. So here the correct response is advise corrective compliances and report the matter where legally required. Move on to the next question. Question number 488. Which of the following is not ordinarily covered by the principle of natural justice? So here the correct answer is strict liability. Move on to the next question. Question number 489. The doctrine of vicarious liability in employment laws is primarily based on. So here the correct answer is liability arising from acts of employees performed in the course of employment subject to the legal principles. Move on to the next question. Question number 490. Under labor welfare jurisprudence, the concept of social security is best understood as. So here it is best understood as protection against contingencies affecting livelihood through statutory or institutional mechanism. Move on to the next question. The question number 491. So assertion, collective bargaining reduce industrial unrest. The reason is it provides an institutional mechanism for resolving dispute through negotiation rather than confrontation. So here the correct answer is option number A. Both A and R are true. R is correctly explained by A. Move on to the next question. Question number 492. A domestic inquiry is liable to be challenged when. So here the correct answer is when the employee is denied a reasonable opportunity to defend himself or herself. So move on to the next question. Question number 493. Which constitutional principle forms the philosophical foundation of most labor welfare legislation? So here the correct answer is social justice. Move on to the next question. Question number 494. Which of the following is most relevant in determining whether an employment relationship actually exists despite contractual terminology? So here the correct answer is option number B. The substance of relationship and actual working condition. So move on to the next question. Question number 495. Under the RTI Act, an exemption from disclosure does not automatically apply here, where a larger public interest justifies disclosure in accordance with the Act. So move on to the next question, question number 496. Which of the following is the strongest indicator of effective labor welfare administration? So here the correct answer is reduction in grievances accompanied by the improved industrial harmony. Move on to the next question, question number 497. A welfare officer is asked to recommend disciplinary action before completion of inquiry. So the most appropriate response is, so here the most appropriate response is, that is, decline to the recommend punishment until due process is completed. So move on to the next question, question number 498. The principle that he who hears must decide is closely associated with. So here the correct answer is option number A, that is procedural fairness in quasi-judicial proceedings. Move on to the next question, question number 499. Which of the following best represents the modern objective of industrial relation? So here the correct answer is balancing productivity, employee welfare and industrial peace through lawful mechanisms. So move on to the very last question of this series. Question number 500. A staff welfare officer is required to advise management on legally complex issues involving welfare, discipline, statutory compliances and employee rights. Which principle should guide the advice? So here the correct answer is option number C, harmonizing statutory compliances, principle of natural justice and organizational objective. So with this question number 500, we have completed the RRB SWO series as promised. So best of luck those who are appearing in the exam in 15th. And if you like the video, please do like, share, subscribe. And if you have any suggestion, then do comment down below. We will always welcoming the suggestions and comments. So thank you for watching our video.